What is good people? You are now listening to another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. I am your humble narrator, Danny Foxworth, and once again, we're blessed with an extremely special guest. Let me see here. Let me tell you, if you were to ever play a word association game with me and the word Philadelphia came up, there's a 99.9% chance that this guest's name will be the first thing that comes out of my mouth when somebody says the word Philadelphia. She is, oh my gosh, she's so many things to so many people. And we're going to get into all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the lovely Lenée Voss, aka Dope Girl Fresh, in the building. How are you doing this evening, Lenée?
Now, of course, my internet has done something foolish, but I'm happy to be here.
Great to have
Thank
you
you.
on.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on one of my favorite podcasts.
It's
One of
too
my
early.
favorite internet people.
It's way too early to be making me cry.
Oh, well, get your tissues ready, bruh.
Eh,
Um, yeah, it's just an honor. Um, for those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Lenée. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am from and live in Philadelphia. I've been on the internet for a long time, and my internet journey has led me here since we last spoke, and I couldn't be happier.
Man, speaking of Philly, let's take it back to the Genesis. So, what does what was Philly like for a young Lenée?
Whew. Well, I grew up in crack era Philadelphia, so that shaped a lot of my imagination. I'm from a pretty bougie neighborhood called East Mount Airy. My family was the first Black family on our street back in the late 1960s.
Oh
So
wow.
we were established in the community in a specific way. But both my maternal grandparents, who I lived with my entire youth, were products of the Great Migration. My maternal grandfather moved up here when he was like 7 from Orangeburg, South Carolina. And my
Really?
maternal, yeah, my people from
Wow.
Orange. Yep, yep. Yeah, I always joke with your sister that we are most likely cousins. Um, we're gonna find out, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah, my maternal grandmother, her family came from North Carolina, so like the Raleigh Durham area, but they came in like I would say late 20s, early 1930s. So my grandmother was born here. And their families went to church together, and that's how they knew one another. They were part of the founding families of, oh gosh, what was it called? Garden of Prayer Church of God in Christ here in Philadelphia, under Mother Elizabeth Dabney, who was like legendary at one point in the Kojic community. And my grandparents lived with my grandfather's parents, my mom, and my two uncles. Then they moved into East Mount area where my family still has a home. I'm the oldest of three girls. So shout out to all us eldest children. It's not easy. Um, and I was just a nerdy, quirky kid. I would read anything. I remember having read every children's book that my mom. So I busted out the World Book Encyclopedia, 1973 edition. And I was like, this is old. My mom was like, read it anyway. So I'm reading encyclopedias. My mom said the day that I taught her that I knew how to read, I sat down next to her and I was like, I'm going to read the newspaper. And she was like, no, you're not. And she said, I started sounding out words. And she was horrified because I was 3. She was like, what am I going to do? So that's who I was at my Genesis, just always running around the house barefoot. I like to dance. I like to sing. I love to watch Kids Incorporated. I love to watch Mary Lou Retton on Saturday morning. She had her little like 10-minute fitness, whatever. And by the time I would get all my little workout gear on, I have to find a picture and send it to you. I had the leotard, I had the tights, I had the leg warmers, I had it all down pat. And
Hmm.
then it would be over by the time I was dressed. So I would just sit on the living room floor with my middle sister and eat cereal and watch cartoons. Um, I loved to dance as a kid. I was always dancing. I remember I was a flower girl at my uncle's wedding back in 1980, and I sweated my hair out when the DJ played the butt, I almost lost my grandmother was gonna whoop me. She was like, who taught her that dance? You know, that, but that's the kid I was. I was always dancing. I'm still an electric slider to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can't nobody out body roll me either. Like, arthritis or not, sciatica or not, I get busy. Um and what else was I like as a kid? I was very curious about everything around me. And I used to dig in the dirt in the front lawn. I would pick up the roly poly bugs, play with the worms. I would catch lightning bugs because who doesn't catch lightning bugs? And I just remember being a very friendly kid as well. My mom said I used to, when I was a toddler, I would walk up to elderly people in the grocery store and hug them, which was hilarious to me because I'm like, what was I doing? It's Philly. You don't just run up on nobody, but I'll run up on somebody's grandma and hug her, and they would be like, okay. Yeah, that was pretty much who I was, just bookish. I love to dance. I love to sing. I imagine myself hosting a radio show one day. If I can find the tape, I'll be so happy. There's a tape of me discussing the New Edition Heartbreak album with my two sisters.
Really?
And yeah, and I'm like reading the album credits, talking about my favorite song, which my favorite member is. And then, you know, fast forward about 25 years, I had an internet radio show with my best friend.
And so yeah, let's get into that. So what was that experience like for you?
Oh, I loved it. Because we had initially started off as a podcast back in 2010. The first wave of podcasts had just started, and people were, you know, people assume that you had to have money and you had to have a professional like background to be a podcaster, but we were just two Black women who wanted to talk about love, sex, dating, and intimacy, but through the lens of hip hop music and culture. Because as I call us Zennials, we're that cohort that spans the bridge between your regular millennial and the Gen X cohort. We just wanted to talk about, like, you know, when I'm trying to get the draw, what do I listen to? Or when I'm trying to feel
Right.
sexy, when I'm getting ready for a good time, what do I want to listen to? And it wasn't just Maxwell. It was Most Def, it's Scarface, High Notes, it's you know, Beautiful Skin by Goody Mob, Slum
Yes.
Beautiful by Outkast. It was, you know, and it might also have been Keep On Keeping On by MC Light and Escape. Like, we had this wide ranging taste in music, and we felt like it was time to talk about it. So my best friend, her name is Uche, she had a blog on Tumblr. Shout out to Tumblr. It was called Hip Hop Is for Lovers. She had a little hashtag and she would track her posts and everything. And the next thing I know, she's like, you want to be on a podcast with me? And I was like, me? Yeah, sure. So we did it. We recorded a few episodes. It was all right. But then in 2011, we decided to do live radio through an internet platform called Spreaker, which is now one of the bigger podcasting uh, formats that people use. And so when Spreaker was in beta, we were out the box. We could play, you know, licensing. We had guests sometimes. We did themed episodes. Like, we did an episode all about Missy Elliott for Women's History Month. We did an episode about BDSM, kink, and polyamory. We did an episode about co-parenting for a lesbian woman that we were friends with. Like, we just talked about all kinds of stuff. And we initiated conversations that I see the reverberations of that now. It's been 10 years since my last episode. I wrapped the show up in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
But there are still things that are happening in the greater internet space that I know that was us. We kicked that off. There are a couple
Yeah.
of people who have witnessed our setup and went on to create their own stuff inspired by us. So uh, it feels really good to have that body of work. And I think she and I are talking about doing something else. We're talking about bringing something back for the people because we miss it. The people miss us. And there are some conversations people still are not having. And I think that now that we are in our 40s, we offer so much. We have so much to talk about. We have, you know, rappers are grandparents. Rappers are uncles and aunties. We got Uncle Rap from, you know, everybody from Paul Wall um, to Jay-Z. We got Uncle Bun. We call Bun B Uncle Bun, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because in our heads, he's an uncle, but he's also a pillar of Texas, Southern, and Houston hip hop. You know, just those kinds of things. And we're looking to, you know, expand our reach through podcasting very soon.
I'm so looking forward to that. So looking forward to that. I'm so mad at myself that I wasn't privy to y'all's previous iteration. Hip hop is for
So
lovers. So,
we out here. We are going to pull our archives out probably before we come back and really like allow me to introduce myself, right? Like I want folks to remember that, you know, we were among the first on the internet giving play to a song called Yankin. I don't know if you know that song, Danny.
yeah.
That's by this rapper named Lady. He was on
Mm-hmm.
Plies label. And I
Yep.
remember that video all up and down television. Everybody like, look at this ghetto. Oh, this is ghetto. She a bird. She did, she did. No, that was our theme song. That was damn near our theme song. We played that song every chance we got. We threw a party at Southpaw in Brooklyn, like one of the last parties at Southpaw. For those of you all who were in New York at that time, Southpaw was the hip hop friendly venue in Brooklyn. It's out behind God's back on the border of Park Slope and Gowanus. I hated it because I lived way, way, way uptown. I had to travel an hour and a half to get there. But we were one of the last hip hop parties there. And our DJ threw on Yankin. I don't know what we were doing. I think I was trying to rest. I was trying to hydrate. I was trying to, you know, stretch or something or socialize, whatever. Song comes on, we run to the dance floor and we just having the best time ever.
Mm-hmm.
That is the essence of my friendship with her. And that's also a really good snapshot of what the show was like. We were always there to have fun. We were very serious. We talked about very important things. We even, like, we rerouted some of our episodes when Troy Davis was executed and Trayvon Martin was murdered. We took time to talk about that. We talked about sexual assault. We talked about consent because people think that consent is, you know, unnecessary red tape, but consent is what most people need in order to feel safe, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to get back to it.
And you mentioned in Yankin, and I posted a clip from when I had my sister on to do our episode, and you talking about Yankin made me think of whenever I was riding with my dad and my back came on, and you know, my 70, I think my pops was like 70 whenever at the time when we were riding around. And we listened to the song in its entirety. And I told Melissa, after the song went off, he looked out the window, he looked back at me and he goes, well, he shrugged and he goes, at least she knows what she wants. I was like, eh, you got a point.
For the listeners, I have adopted Danny's parents as my parents. Like they're the best bonus parents I could ever have. Um, I love I love your whole family. Y'all are just the family that I don't have, but the family I'm glad I'm able to choose. So for those of y'all who don't know, go back and listen to Danny's episodes with his mom, his dad, and his sister.
Yeah, those always a treat. Bringing the family on. Um, let's see. Actually, before you got into talking about the podcast, I was going to mention you were talking about your youth, and so many of your characteristics were so similar to mine growing up in terms of
Mm-hmm.
loving, like just being such a voracious reader at such a young age. I remember being on the school bus. Once word got out that I like to read the newspaper, and the bus driver would have me sit up front and like read the newspaper to her. And my first grade teacher would have me get up and read the Charlie Brown comics in front of the
Oh,
class. And also that and your curious streak, because I too vividly remember going in the grocery store with my mom and just leaving her and walking up to complete strangers, telling them my name. And she snatched me up right before I got my entire address out to them. But yeah, God bless her. And
stranger danger.
yeah, but but just hearing your stories growing up, it was so eerily similar to my upbringing and the dancing too. You talking about you dancing as a flower child. I remember being a ring bearer at my aunt and uncle's wedding, and at the reception, me and my cousin Vidal, we were breakdancing in our cocaine white tuxes, backspins and everything. Mom took our tuxes back to Genghis formal wear, and they were so dingy,
Oh my,
but it was so well worth it. I had a ball.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's a memory you're going to have for the rest of your life. I remember my little lilac flower girl dress. I remember having, fresh flowers behind my ear with the baby's breath. I had, for those of y'all who are listening who maybe did not have this experience, I had a perm at that age. I was 8. I had a perm. I had pineapple waves, not finger waves, not French waves, pineapple waves, a very specific thing where that net they put over your head to hold your wrap down. My stylist, she gelled my hair. She parted on one side or down the middle or whatever. She would sweep it back.
Mm-hmm.
She put the net on it and she put the end of a rat tail comb to pull the hair gently up. And I sat underneath the dryer. I'm talking gel crusted on my ear. Like I got battle scars. Okay, I got perm battle scars. I've also, those of you who don't know me, I've had literally every black hairstyle in the book. I've had 2 sets of dreads, a weave, perms, braids, scrunch waves, pineapple waves, maybe a couple finger waves, press and curl. I've done it all. And now, what year is it? 2024. I haven't had a perm since Bill Clinton was president. Um, and now I'm in my auntie era, so I'm blonde. This is what I'm doing.
I love it.
Thank you.
You
Thank
keep the people guessing. I love all these numerous iterations of Lenée. I love it. So let's see, high school years. What was that like for you?
Okay. Well, I'll give a little background. I got a scholarship to a very exclusive private school when I was in
Mm-hmm.
the ninth grade. My mom saw an ad for it in the local newspaper, in the neighborhood newspaper, because we had 2 papers for the city, the Inquirer and the Daily News. And then we had our local paper, and it was called, I want to say the Mount Airy Leader, maybe. Yes, it was the Leader. And so it was free. It was delivered to every house in my zip code, every house in maybe like 3 or 4 zip codes near me. And my mom was like, "You're going to that school." And I was like, I wanted to go to public school with my friends. I wanted to be at the mainstream public school in the smart kid classes. I wanted to take the city bus to and from school every day. I did not want to go to that school with all them. I wasn't interested. Because Philly was approximately 50% black. And so going to public school, even the smart kids school, meant that I was surrounded by black people.
Yeah.
I was surrounded, you know, Lao people, Cambodian kids, Korean kids, Russian and Ukrainian kids. I wanted to have this United Colors of Benetton public school experience. And my mom was like, "Nope, public school's gonna eat you up. You need to go to school with these rich white people." So the test, I got in. I was one of 4 scholarship recipients.
Wow.
So that was a cultural shock because the first day of school, I showed up looking public school fresh. I had on my burnt orange denim set with the matching jacket and my graffiti print blouse and my little loafers. What was my hair doing? I think I had just gotten a wrap, maybe. I had a short hair because the relaxer and me were not friends, but it was cute when I needed it to be. And I just remember walking up to the girl who had been my guide when I came to visit the school the prior year and
Mm-hmm.
be like, "Oh my gosh, hi." And she was like, "Hey." And I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb because I wasn't in J. Crew. I wasn't wearing anything from the Gap. I didn't shop at LL Bean or Eddie Bauer. I was fresh to death in my outfit from Foreman Mills. Like, y'all couldn't tell me, I was public school fresh. And
Yeah.
so that was one of the first things that I realized that I just was different by default. So I was challenged a lot to build relationships with the other black kids in my school. All the black girls sat at the same lunch table. That's how few of us there were. When upper school, which was the high school portion because it was a K to 12 school, when we had lunch, all 4 grades sat at the table together.
Really?
Ninth through 12, all us black girls sat at the table together with our couple white friends. There was a black Puerto Rican girl that was a couple years ahead of me. Um, there was a scholarship cohort the year ahead of me. So the sophomores they like pulled us aside and they were like, "Look, these white people are different, but we got you." And so we built community around that. I was in chorus. I was co-founder of gospel choir my sophomore year of high school because that was the place for me to be black. Um, what else did I do? I was in a a club based on volunteering, basically. So because it was a Quaker school and service learning was part of the concept of Quaker education in the 90s, along with multiculturalism, which I have a lot to say about that, but maybe that's for another time. I did service. So I volunteered at a school for disabled children, to be a classroom support person. I volunteered at a group home for young kids who have been taken away from their families and were in placement while waiting for long-term foster care or engaged their parents. We did park cleanups. We volunteered for the AIDS walk one year. So I had to be up at 3 a.m. to go put cones out and make sure there were water stations and stuff. I did a lot of community work, and that shaped how I viewed the world as a young person. Quakerism, for those who don't know, Quakerism is a form of Protestantism as a Christian, but their founding principle is that there's the light of God in every human. So we talk about the inner light. And every week had Quaker meeting for worship. So go in, whole upper school or the whole middle school, depending on what session it is. You walk into the meeting room, you have a big, big, big assembly room, and you sit on a bench and you are quiet. At a very young age that I can get without being preached to or without being told what to believe or what to think. And I didn't realize until I was much older that really, I don't want to say radicalized me, but it definitely turned my concept of faith on its ear.
Mm-hmm.
Because I learned that I didn't have to shout fire and brimstone at anybody. I didn't have to condemn anybody. All I needed to do was sit and be still and wait for God to speak. And so that was a bigger how I move through the world. So I spend a lot of time meditating and in like complete silence at home now as an adult. Trying to think if there's anything else about me in high school. Oh, I was great at Spanish. I was fantastic at Spanish. I was pushing for full fluency by the time I was in my second year.
Wow.
Yeah, I was trying. And I really I loved speaking Spanish. I love Spanish. Um, and I was really thinking about that. I was terrible at sports, but we had a sports requirement. So I did what all the other Black kids did. I played lacrosse for a year or two, and then I switched to track and field because that's where my people were. I did shot put, javelin, and discus. I was terrible at all three of them, but I had to fulfill this requirement. And so we were lifting weights, running a mile every day. Like in hindsight, as a child of the 90s, I'm pretty sure I qualified as cock diesel by the time I was done with one season. But, I felt awkward. I was 16, 17 years old. I was like, why? I didn't want my body to look like that. I had a lot of like insecurities as being fat, Black, and poor in this environment where people's parents are just buying them BMWs for their sweet 16
Yeah.
was a lot to think about. But I survived. I made it out of there in one piece, and I decided I was going to go to college in the New York City suburbs. I went to a small college named Manhattanville, and I hated it, so I left. And that's really high. That's I know you wanted to talk about college. That's literally just high school and college. I mean, I met my two of my best friends in the whole world in college. Um, I was in a production of For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, which I had read so many times as a teenager that I got from the library, and I felt so to be in it. Um, I learned a lot about salsa and merengue. I learned a lot about myself every time. And mostly, I learned that I really school. Like I was burnt out on school by the time I finished high school, but I didn't have language for it. It wasn't something that was considered. You don't have an option. If you're college bound, there's no such thing as burnout. When you're in school, there's no such thing as burnout. So I, and my mother will kill me for saying this, but I intentionally flunked out.
Oh, there you go.
Nobody
Bombshell.
had the support for me. Yeah, I flunked out on purpose, child. I didn't want to be there. I just didn't want to be there anymore. And I came home to Philly, did a couple classes at community college, hated that too. I just did not like school. Got a series of like really crappy office jobs. And just continue to teach myself the things I wanted to learn. I'm a
So,
student of.
so you talking about being a student of life. What was some of the more, I say, mo some of the more interesting subjects that you learned
Okay,
during this period of education?
I love that question. So for those who aren't familiar with the parlance, I am a former hotep, um, meaning that I was into this Black consciousness space, this Afrocentric, but not actually like politically salient uh, philosophy that everything in my life needs to be about Blackness, but specifically Black Americanness and the African diaspora. So, I didn't perm my hair. I tried to be a pescatarian. I wore dashiki a whole lot. I always had on some cowrie shells. I always, like, it was a mess. But one of the things that I learned about that time was the way that Black people in the US especially have been shut out of our own history. So I did a lot of learning on my own. Um, I was fortunate enough to meet Afeni Shakur and Jasmine Guy at an event that they did. Jasmine Guy had written this book about Afeni Shakur and also her relationship with Tupac. And it came out in 2005. And on my 25th birthday, I went to their book event and I met them both. And they both, it was just such a beautiful thing. And I was like, it's so nice to meet a Panther. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that I learned, I started really digging into music more because my family came from a Pentecostal holiness background. Um, there were certain music and genres that were just not considered acceptable. Like I remember getting in trouble for listening to TLC's first album. I don't know where I think I bought some headphones at James Way or maybe at Cal. I spent whatever little $5 I had on those headphones, and I plugged them in my boombox, and they got a short in them. But I was going to keep going because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to get in trouble for listening to TV. Because it's definitely going to get me toe out the frame. Um, and I just remember digging into music, so I really got into Donny Hathaway, Nina Simone. I started digging through Ella Fitzgerald, um, Billie Holiday. I was obsessed with Billie Holiday at one point. And I also, in my late teens, early 20s, really got into the Roots. Um, and so I remember when Things Fall Apart came out, it was the spring of my freshman year of college. And I want to say that was the same day that Black Star album came out. That was the same day, also, I think, that TLC's Fan Mail album came out. And so I'm at the school store. I'm in a bookstore. For those of y'all who went to college back when CDs, a whole display of CDs in my school bookstore. Don't tell my mom, but a couple times I did spend the money she sent me for groceries on music. I did. It's just what I did. And so I was just surround myself with music. And so when I moved back to Philly, I had my CDs with me. I had a couple books, but the most important thing to me was my music. So I was dating this dude, and he said he was really into the Roots. And I was like, all right, well, we're doing a show on Black Friday. And I bought, oh my gosh, tickets couldn't have been more than $25 a piece. And I bought these tickets with my, where was I working? I think I was either working at Wawa or working a really crappy mall job, crappy mall retail job. For those of y'all who don't know what Wawa is the greatest thing ever. It is a convenience store. Some places have a gas station. You can get pizza, a breakfast sandwich, a freshly made hoagie. They got salad bowl. You can get a fried chicken sandwich, anything, just about anything at Wawa. And the ATMs are surcharge free. So I was working my little whatever job I was working, and I bought us tickets, but I was like, I want to feel more comfortable with with the show. So I go into okayplayer.com and I'm like, oh, they got message boards. And so that was the journey. That was the beginning of me really being a chronically online person. That's where I met your sister. That's where I met so many people that I'm still friends with now. And also my desire to talk I don't think I've spoken to this man in more than 10 years. He became a QAnon conspiracy theorist. I stopped banging with
Oh
him.
shit.
Yeah, we were, hey, how you doing? Nice to hear from you, blah, blah, blah. But then I found out he went off the deep end. That's a wrap. But yeah, thanks to me trying to impress him, I made one of the best friends I've ever had in my life. And here I am on your podcast. So like shout out to 19 and 20-year-old me trying to impress a dude that wasn't worth it.
And you bringing up Okayplayer, it was actually something that added to the notes that I wanted to talk about because I never posted on Okayplayer, but I was a serial lurker, like to
We
the
love a
highest
lurker.
power.
We love a lurker.
Yes.
Lurkers really made the site work, and I don't think people understood that. Like, for those of you all who don't know what a message board is, let me tell you. Like, we posted things on the message boards, people will reply. Um, I remember being on Okayplayer long enough that when they updated the server, I was considered a charter member, and that was very coveted. So very similar to the way we are. A lot of people have been on Facebook. Oh, I've been on Facebook since I was in college. There are other people who had no idea that Facebook even existed specifically for college students at one point.
Yeah.
So okay, was that for me, and Okayplayer for me, and for your sister. We talk about it like we went to high school with people like Jesus Nice from Jesus and Mero, um, Gene Demby from NPR Code Switch, Tracy Clayton, aka Broken with Poverty,
Mm-hmm.
Nicole Perkins, who is an amazing memoirist. She actually has a really cool podcast that she wrapped up a few weeks ago called The Godmother. Y'all should check it out. Um, who else? Just mad internet people, internet people who know stuff, internet people who do stuff. Um, we're a little community. Those of you all who know about Little Brother's music, you wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for the Okayplayer boards and
Yep.
DJ Brainchild. Like there's just so many things that have come out of that. Tanya Morgan, the whole Legendary crew, Shay Grant, Elucid, who is like everybody's favorite abstract rapper right now. We are all part of that little network, that little clash of people. And so when people ask me how I'm so good at Twitter or Instagram or why I'm always so good at Facebook when I log on to that raggedy enough, it's because of Okayplayer. Okayplayer, the boards were brutal, child.
Yes.
We had board wars. It was Lucy.com boards, Okayplayer boards, and then the people from like online support online hip hop, or the people from undergroundhiphop.com message boards. Like I remember everybody started getting message boards, and a bunch of us were like, "I'm not doing this. I'm gonna stay where I'm at," because we didn't see the
Yep.
point chasing, and then we all migrated to MySpace for a hot second. So yeah, the internet is just woven into who I am as a person. It's how I've learned so much, but it's also, I would say, it's the kind of thing for me where I recognize my impact on the internet as a person who was in certain spaces, Black feminist spaces on Tumblr and Twitter, um, doing discussion groups, message boards, uh, the early now or Indigo or whatever, doing that. Some of us were passing around the same $20. Some of us were mailing money orders. Some of us were mailing cash and a birthday card as our mutual aid back in the day. So yeah, I'm not gonna say terminally online, but definitely I used to be a chronically online person. I used to be one of those people on Twitter who people, oh my gosh, you say things like that to people on the internet. Yep, and I'll say it to your face too. Why? Because I'm from Philadelphia.
There you go. um, I want to talk about your writing and
Okay.
your writing process because I've been reading some of your blogs and just your command of language is just it's aspirational. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to you because the way that you just like break down some like the most simple things and you say it in such an eloquent way it's just it's like auditory candy for me.
Why? Thank you.
Like
Thank
like
you.
seriously. So let's talk about your writing process. Like when did you realize that you had a gift for writing?
I have been writing for as long as I can remember. I remember before I started school formally, because I probably did go to preschool, but I would just be home with my grandmother, um, and she taught me how to write. And I remember she would just give me a piece of paper and a notebook, and she'd be like, "Practice your letters." Or when I went to a small like cooperative learning school, kind of experimental. Shout out to all of us eldest children who are our parents' experiments, basically. My mom sent me to this experimental co-op school, and they taught this form of writing. I think it was called Demelian, where it was not quite cursive, but not quite regular script. And so I practiced that. It was like a half step in between. And I would get these vocabulary words from my spelling class or whatever, language arts, whatever they called the class. And I would say, let's say it was 20 vocabulary words. And my mom would be like, okay, you can either write sentences or you can write a story. Those were the options we have for homework. And I'd be writing this story and trying to jam all the words into the last three sentences because I had a whole story to tell. I'd be like, you can't be up till 9 o'clock writing one story. And I'm like, it's important. And so that's kind of who I've always been. I've always had a notebook. I remember I would watch, like Ghostwriter or read a Babysitter's Club book and try to write my own Babysitter's Club novel or write my own script for Ghostwriter. Or, I would be inspired. I would read album liner notes and use these people's names and make up characters. Um, and so I was always writing. So I was really good at English. I don't think I ever got anything less than a B in English my entire academic K through 12 career. And if
Wow.
I got anything less than a B, it had to have been because I was sick. I got really sick in ninth grade. I had pneumonia. I missed like 3 weeks of school. Um, and so I had to pull it together. But other than that, I was Little Miss Language Arts. I always wrote. And I would say I became a blogger in about 2003, 2000, no, 2001, 2002. And so I had a blog on Diaryland. And then I switched to Blogger. And when Google bought Blogger, that was how I got a Gmail account. I was no longer on Yahoo, no longer on Hotmail. Fun fact about me, my email address on Hotmail was macdiva@hotmail.com. Because I read an album review, and the album was called Mac Diva Saves the World. And I can't remember the woman's name, the artist. But I was like, Diva is such a cool email. So I was macdiva@hotmail.com. Um, and then I found myself on Blogger. I switched to WordPress. I had Tumblr, but Twitter kind of broke up my blogging for a little while because Twitter was originally a microblogging platform and it turned into a conversation platform. So some of the deepest things I've ever said are on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, God bless, because I'd be tweeting. I don't call it X, it's Twitter. I don't care what nobody say. Um, and now that I have my own website, which is sayheylenée.com, I just kind of type out little ideas. I feel little issues in my brain, or there'll be something I think about maybe like on the bus or walking down the street, and I'll type it in a notes app on my phone and then transfer it to Google Docs. Um, I am also a fan of writing things out pen to paper because those of us who grew up on I would say honestly 1990, on the some if you were born between, I would say, 1970 and 1990, you probably remember a time when if you had a paper to turn in at school, you could turn in a draft handwritten as long as it was clearly written. You may not have used a typewriter. You may have had a word processor.
Hmm.
Not everybody, not every school had computers. So I'm a fan of writing pen to paper. I'll write an outline, Roman numerals, capital letters, all that, like the format that I was taught as early as maybe like fifth or sixth grade, because of the education I had access to. And I'll use that now. Like I'm working on a piece about the grief of committing to your principles and what it can feel like to lose relationships or feel a severing in your relationships because you've chosen to stand on business, as the kids like to say. um, Especially with what's happening in Palestine right now. with what's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Sudan, even here in the US, like we're looking at the cop city situation in Atlanta. What does it mean to say to people you love, people you know, people you care about, I can't do this anymore because this is against my principles? And it's not easy. So I've been wrestling with that. Um, and it feels good to write about, but I also want to get back into like comedic writing. Um, because there, I had this idea one day that I was going to write a fan fiction blog where in an alternate universe, Trinidad James and ODB are
That is a fantastic
roommates.
premise.
And it's called All Dirty Everything. I think the Tumblr is still up. I got to see if I can get into it, but it's out here somewhere on the internet. It's called All Dirty Everything. And I only wrote the one story, and I'll give y'all a synopsis. Um, Trinidad James is up, or he's awakened by a phone call on the landline, and it's Coolio trying to talk dirt. And James's response is basically, "You don't have no home training. You don't have no boundaries. Why you call out my house acting like this?" And then James confronts Dirty, and he's like, "Look, Dirt, I love you, and I know Coolio's your boy, but you need to have boundaries and have a friend who respects your boundaries a little bit more." And so that's the story I wrote, and I want to get back into that. I think I want to get back into maybe not fan fiction, but funny things because I know I'm hilarious. Um, I'm a very funny person. I make myself laugh. I make the funniest people in my life laugh. That's how I know I'm funny. Um, and so I want to get back into that because it feels good to make people laugh, and it feels good to make myself laugh. And then another part of my process also is I look at what do I want to put on my Patreon, which is $5 a month subscription for those of you who are interested. And then what do I want to share publicly for free? Because I don't believe that information should cost money. I don't believe that the structure we have in the world, especially not in the US, we should not be paying to learn things that we need to know to stay alive and stay safe. So I'm trying to be very judicious and
Yeah.
thoughtful. I do. Um, and if I'm lucky, if it happens in my lifetime, when capitalism is abolished and everything starts anew, y'all can have all my information for free. Because why not?
um, you were also a grief and death doula.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm assuming there were some things that happened, like maybe it's like a series of events that happened that really shaped your opinion and like shaped your focus towards going towards this specific discipline. So how did you get into that world of being a grief and death doula?
See, what had happened was um, I originally trained as a birth and postpartum doula back in 2008 when a lot of people weren't doing it.
Okay.
Um, and if they were doing it for a lot of money. Doula work was often the domain of moneyed white women who could afford to just drop everything and show up at a birth. Um, but I wanted to train with a Black focused org that's now defunct. It was called the International Center for Traditional Childbearing. And um, I just really wanted to help people because I felt like Black maternal death and infant rates were atrocious. And this was in 2008.
Yeah.
And while that's currently a larger conversation, I was having these conversations in my circles back in 2006, 2007. And I wanted to work a job that had purpose because I was working a really crappy city government job. I hated it, hated it, hated it. Still hate it. I quit that job 15 years ago this week, actually. Um, Shout out to me. I did that. But I was, I wanted to be a doula. I could not be a birth doula and make the money I wanted to make. So I stuck to postpartum because I could schedule the time that I spent with families and supporting them. And then in 2019, oh my God, 39. What am I doing? Turning 40 next year. I need a purpose because, of course, because who doesn't have a meltdown right before they turn 40? Um, and my friend and I were talking, and she was like, I think you have a gift for understanding and respecting people's grief and understanding and respecting death and dying in a way that a lot of people don't. Um, she gave me a spiritual reading for those of you who are not, who are strictly Jesus. I'll put it to you like this: she prophesied. Okay, she spoke over my life and she poured into me, and she was like, "You have a gift." She's like, "Your ancestors are with you. She was like, "You just are a conduit of spirit, and that's part of the gift of being a death doula." And I was like, "Okay, work." Like, 2020 starts. It's January. I'm recovering from a series of illnesses. I had um, some issues with my uterus. I had a hysterectomy in June 20, on your sister's birthday, funny enough, in June 2019. So we were celebrating her birthday and my freedom. I took the top off the Maybach on that day. And and so I was like, all right, 2020, let's get it. I'm gonna be 40. I'm gonna be fighting and bopping all up and down I-95 because I'm turning 40. I expected to turn up. And then COVID was like, no,
Not so fast.
take your behind down somewhere. So what I ended up doing was just kind of wandering around the internet, and I found this event called a Death Cafe. And so a Death Cafe is something that was founded by this man, the late John Underwood, the dude from England. His mom was a therapist. I think his wife was a therapist, and John was dying of cancer. But what he wanted to do was talk about death, grief, and dying in a way that normal and not stodgy, right? A Brit who didn't want to be stodgy. I was like, okay, great, let's, I'm into it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was in person. People could have tea, snacks, cake, sandwich, whatever they want, and just sit and talk in a way that's not about judging. Nobody's being coached, nobody's being counseled, but just expressing yourself honestly about death, grief, and dying. So the group that I joined was run by a Black woman who was a death doula at the time. And it was all focused on people of the global majority. That's what I call those of us who are not white. Um, and we got to have a space that was for us and about us. And it was really meaningful in July 2020 for me to join, because we were looking at, the refrigerator trucks in New York. We're talking about the COVID death rates. People are getting sick, etc. And I needed some place to be. And so I learned that I could not be a death doula until I dealt with my grief, until I embraced and learned more about my grief.
Mm.
Grief from personal trauma, or grief that comes from witnessing other people's harm, or even just the loss of somebody important, whether it's a collective loss, like when Michael Jackson died, when Prince died, um, or, something personal, like even the grief of a breakup, a friend breakup, a romantic breakup, or the grief of leaving a job to go to a new one, because there is grief where there's change, there may be loss, and where there's
Yeah.
loss, there's grief. And no matter how grateful we are for that opportunity, we have to be honest with ourselves that sometimes it hurts more than it helps at first. So I got into kind of just nerding out, basically. I did a death doula training in 2021 through, what are they called? Oh my gosh, I forgot their name. It don't matter. I'll fill y'all in another time. But I became a death doula because I really wanted to sit with people as they were at their end of life, um, or support people remotely or in person as they were dealing with their loved one. Because what I find is that when people are near death, unless they have a lot of material resources, a lot of money, a big house, things like that, their care often falls to a family member. Um, like when my maternal grandfather died in 2016, he had been in hospice for about 6 months before he passed,
Mm-hmm.
because he was in no condition to be at home. And so I spent a lot of time with him. When I realized what a death doula was, I realized that my mother was the first death doula I ever knew, because she was with my grandmother until her last breath. And because my mom took care of my grandmother, paid some of my grandmother's medical bills, worked a full-time job, raised 3 kids, and was in grad school all at the same time.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was a lot. Like, it was a lot. She, if I had to guess, she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown at one point, because what else could you be in that kind of a situation?
Yeah.
Because my grandma didn't have insurance. And so when we talk about healthcare in America, I've seen the devastation of that for a long time now. And so I just remember when my grandfather got sick, my mom was like, he's going into hospice because I'm not a healthcare professional. That was it. And that was really meaningful to me because it was a boundary she set that she could not set before. And so I learned from observing my mom that there is no reason for anyone who is ill equipped or unequipped to extend themselves in that way because it does not help you and it does not nurture your relationship with the person who is dying.
Yeah.
It can like I know I have loved ones who are like, I would never put my parent. Okay, cool, that's you. But also you can always say never before it happens. When that weight is on you, you should be prepared
Yeah.
to make a shift, make some choices that because you have to preserve yourself. You cannot love them until their last breath if you are worn out. And so what I do is a lot of practical grief support too. I do grief workshops. I'm bringing them back in May. I do a friend breakup workshop, which is really fun because I invite people to write a eulogy, write an obituary, write a farewell letter, write a fuck you letter to the relationship that's ended because we need to feel what we feel. The only way out is through when it comes to grief. Um, I also, as a practitioner of Reiki, so for those who don't know what Reiki is energy work. And it's very similar. If I had to guess, I would say Jesus was a Reiki master. It was just Resurrection Sunday. He laid hands, right? He healed the sick. He raised the dead. Reiki, I'm not saying I can raise the dead. I ain't saying all that. But what I can do is connect to the universal life force that animates us, the thing that keeps us alive and makes us alive. And I can channel that to support somebody in their physical and or emotional healing. So part of my grief work is also about laying hands and teaching people how to lay hands on themselves. Um, I really like what I do. It's awkward sometimes. So yeah, I'm in school, and they're like, "You what?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a grief worker." They're like, "You're a grief worker. What does that mean?" So like, if I'm crying and sad because I miss my grandma, I would talk to you. I'm like, "Yeah." Or also, if you want to bust somebody in the face with a brick because they did you greasy and your relationship is over, you could also talk to me because there is grief in that. Um, and I love what I do. I took a break. I've taken a serious break from it because I was just kind of burnt out at the end of last year. But as spring comes back, as we, you know, head towards summer, I'm getting back into it, and I'm really excited. I have some wonderful offerings for people coming up in
Nice. That's that's such a unique that's such a unique occupation. And thank you for being that vehicle for people that are going through grief and like the various what's the word I'm looking for? Like the build up.
May. Mm-hmm.
And when they feel that build up just like bubble over and they have somebody to talk to and you that can really ease them through that process and talk them through that process. Seriously, you're doing an amazing work.
Thank you, thank you. It sometimes feels like nobody gets it. I know that during the earlier part of quarantine, people were like, yeah, we're all grieving. You're right. Oh my gosh. But then when everybody started getting vaccinated and things started opening back up and people stopped wearing masks and stopped distancing, they were like, oh, we're fine. We're back to it. But what we're seeing now is more and more people are getting into fist fights. More and more people are emotionally dysregulated. And that is not just the impact of being in COVID, but some people are, what they don't realize is that COVID damages the nervous system because it is microvascular. And the part of you that regulates your emotions and keeps you from flying off the handle is impacted. So we're going to see the results of this for years to come. And I want to, not to sound morbid, but when I look behind me, when I'm on my way home, I want to be able to look behind me and say, I left these tools, I left these gifts, I walk with people on their journey so that they can walk with someone else on a journey.
That's such a great way to put a bow into your into this segment.
Thank
So, you're welcome. So now we're going to get into the 5 questions segment. And
you.
there's actually going to be some bonus questions courtesy of my sister.
Okay,
So
great.
for those that are listening, the 5 question segment, the first and last question I ask every guest I have on here. And Questions 2 through 4 are 100% random. There may be more than 5 questions, though. But question number 1, what would be your go-to school lunch items?
Oh, okay. Turkey sandwich on potato bread, toasted if possible. A little bit of mayonnaise, lettuce, tomato. And my mom used to do this thing where she would take the lettuce and tomato and put it in a sandwich bag and she would put dried minced onion on top of it. And I could just take it out of the sandwich bag and put it on the sandwich so my sandwich wasn't soggy. She put the mayonnaise in a little sandwich bag and I just had to tear the end off and squeeze it on it. Cool Ranch Doritos, of course, because when they came out, you couldn't tell me nothing.
Yes.
And I preferred orange high C, maybe a little juicy juice, or Sips lemonade. Y'all remember Sips?
Now, I'm
It
not
was
familiar
two.
with Sips.
Yo, Sips was that girl. Okay, in my life. And if there was a dessert, it might be an orange, it might be, but my mom's favorite thing to do was take that green decorative sugar and she would put it on unsweetened pineapple chunk and put it in my little screw top thermos. So I would have green pineapples at lunch and people would be hating,
Hey.
or they would be hating on me. But they is eating something weird. And I remember telling this one boy who was my nemesis from 3rd to 5th grade, Toshan Jennings, I'm talking about you. I don't know if you remember this, but he said something about my lunch. And I said, my mom loves me enough to send me to school with lunch instead of having me eat that nasty shit the school makes.
Truth
I,
hammer was dropped.
I was a really, really quiet kid who didn't bother nobody. So I just kind of went off. You wasn't gonna talk about my lunch and you wasn't gonna talk about my mama feeding me either.
All right. Question number 2, courtesy of my sister. She asks if you could pick 3 things that people would understand about you before ever speaking to you, what would they
Mm,
be?
okay. The first thing, pardon my language, I care deeply, but I don't give a fuck. Meaning, I have this wealth of compassion and empathy. But at the end of the day, I can't do nothing for you that you can't do for yourself or won't do for yourself. Um, as a grief worker, I'm dealing with people's emotions all the time. I'm dealing with people's losses, and there is a limit to how much I can do. You got to do the rest yourself.
Yeah.
Uh, Number two, I am a deeply unserious person. If I can't laugh, it's real bad. Have busted out laughing at funerals. I have laughed at inappropriate things that I mean, like cracking jokes to myself in public places. Thank God I'm masked everywhere I go because I be cracking up sometimes and nobody. And I always have, I always got a silly song or dance to go with whatever I'm doing. And the third thing I wish people could know about me before they speak to me, I would say I probably have my headphones on because the last thing I want to do is be spoken to. And I wish people would understand that. I don't care. I honestly don't care if you're lost. I don't care if you don't know how to get to the whatever. I the headphones are on. Don't talk to me. Please back up off me.
We are here.
Uh,
We are
yeah,
here.
that's my thing. It's an intentional sign of isolation. It's intentional, and I'm not blocking out the world because I hate it. I'm keeping myself together because people are a lot.
100%. Next question. What would be your ideal 2 side dishes for baked chicken and your 2 ideal side dishes for fried chicken?
Ooh, okay, baked chicken. I chicken bacon, make my own take on a fattoush salad. So fattoush salad, it's some people call it Mediterranean, but I think of it as Middle Eastern, like Palestinian, Lebanese. It's thinly shredded uh, romaine lettuce, uh, dinosaur kale, diced tomato, parsley, mint, lemon, olive oil, salt, and pepper, and cucumber, diced cucumber also. That's one of my favorite things to eat year round. And what's my other ideal side? I've gotten really into coconut rice. I make a bomb coconut rice. For those of you who don't like coconut, I'm so sorry. But it's coconut milk, chicken broth, herbs, spices, it's bay leaf, it's all the things. And if I've cooked it right, there's a little crust on the bottom from the fat burning out. And in Dominican Spanish, in the DR, they call it el con con. in Puerto Rican Spanish is called El Pegao.
Hmm.
I do a happy dance when I see Pegao, when I see Cocon on my right. Like, it means the world to me. It means that the ancestors have blessed me with con con. For fried chicken, you know, I also tend to like a salad with fried chicken, but let me be for real. Fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and corn on the cob with a ton of butter.
Boom.
Always a good time. I had a roommate, she's Navajo, and she said that her favorite thing to eat when she was a kid was fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and corn. And so when we both were just down bad but didn't want to buy pizza, like, girl, you want some fried chicken for dinner? We go to the Chinese carryout and get some wings. And we always had potatoes and corn in the house. So that was what we had. That's my favorite way to eat fried chicken as of this 45-degree day in Philadelphia.
Can't go wrong with that. See, next question. Labyrinth or the Neverending Story?
Oh my gosh. I haven't seen either in a really long time. But I'm leaning into the never ending story because I had a huge crush on Jonathan Brandis. Huge, enormous. I also I just also feel like Southport the Luck Dragon is just like my jam, and the Rock Eater is like Labyrinth was dope. I enjoyed Labyrinth. I will, if I can watch it tonight, I might. But something about the never ending story. Also, the theme song really did it for me.
Yeah.
My jam.
Oh man. Let's see. All right. Um, all right. Last question. What was the last thing that made you laugh? That really made you laugh?
Last thing that really made me laugh. Okay, so I'm an incredibly online person, and my homegirl, who is also an incredibly online person, sent me this TikTok. This sister is singing to the tune of "Bitty Bitty Bum Bum" by Selena about Diddy, Diddy Diddy Dun Dun. It's hilarious. I was in here bark laughing. You hear me? I laughed so hard I almost dropped my phone on the floor because it was just it's so silly and so perfect. And like I said, I can laugh at almost anything. I can't laugh at what he did, but I can laugh at him. I can laugh at the way that he's being taken to account and called to the carpet for what he's done and thought he'd get away with for 30 some years. So, that was funny. The other thing I laughed at really hard today, I'm always laughing at something. I laughed really hard at my boo thing celebrating me dancing while I washed the dishes. Very funny, very cute, very innocent. Because I am somebody who hates doing dishes, so I had to make it fun. I had to create fun for myself, and that's the last two things I laughed at. Now, can I ask you what's the last thing you laughed at?
Oh man, the last thing I laughed at was let's see. It was actually it was like maybe no, it's actually yesterday. Have you ever seen that clip of is the two newscasters? It was George Michael and Jim Vance laughing at the lady that was walking on the runway
No.
and she stumbled and fell and like the newscasters are crying laughing. Lenée, I showed that clip to my dad. I've never in my life seen him laugh as hard. Like I've never seen him laugh harder in my entire life.
I know he was too through. I know he was.
I
I just know.
I have to send you that clip whenever we log off.
Yeah.
Oh, late edition, courtesy of
Okay.
my sister. You spoke about being in the gospel choir and following you on Twitter. I know that you are a Clark Sisters aficionado.
Yeah. I
So
am.
she was wondering, like, which R&B artists do you feel were directly influenced by the Clark Sisters?
I love this question. Oh my gosh. Okay. So the obvious answer is Faith Evans because people, I mean, like to the point that there's a duet that Faith has with Karen Clark Sheard on Karen's first debut on her solo album. I think it's called Finally Karen. That if you didn't know their voices, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Missy Elliott and Tweet. If you listen to the Miss E So Addictive album, if you listen to Missy's vocals on there's an LSG song she's on with Coco, who is another child of the Clark sisters. Coco Faith, LSG, and Missy. The song is called All the Times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to it, like I prefer to listen to it in headphones because I can really get all of it. But if you hear when Missy comes in at the end, it's like they evangelize it. So let's see. Mary, Mariah. Um, and I'm also so people who don't know Yeba, but Yeba has said, and it's in her bio, she said it in interviews, her musical heroes are the Clark sisters. So the first time I heard Yeba sing was a song called In My Mind. If y'all Google that, because that's a white girl from somebody's holler back in like Arkansas or something. Her daddy was a Pentecostal minister. As far as I'm concerned, that white girl got it honest.
Yeah,
Okay.
she Memphis all day.
Exactly. If you ever met a white Pentecostal from down south, you know what I'm talking about. That is a Clark sister. Like if somebody took Gretchen Parlato, who's this amazing jazz singer, and Kim Burrell and Karen Clark Sheard and squished them together, that's Yeppa. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. Definitely PJ Morton. Though he is more clearly a disciple of Stevie Wonder, he's a child of the Clark sisters, 100%. And I'm definitely Tweet. If you listen to some of her, like even any one of her 3 albums, her Simply Tweet EP, the way she arranges some of her background vocals, or even some of her lead vocals, it's a stacked 4-part harmony or a 3-part harmony. The way that the Clark sisters sing.
Mm.
Yeah, I could talk. Oh gosh, I got to come back and talk to you about all my gospel songs.
We'll do it. We will do
Yeah.
it.
Oh, can we do a gospel bracket?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
You know what? While it's fresh in my mind, I'm gonna write that down right now.
Thank you. A gospel bracket. I'm ready. Whenever you're ready, I'm ready. Because I could talk all day about Richard Smallwood, about Daryl Coley, when Sunday comes, John P. Key, and how he got the nastiest fingers on the key. Like that man ain't no joke. Yeah, I love Kirk Franklin. I love Fred Hammond. I love all of that. You what, child? Yes,
Oh man. All right. All right. Yeah. We got to put a pin in that one, and we definitely going. I'm definitely bringing you back. We doing the gospel bracket.
I'm excited.
So, anything you want to plug or promote, or where people can find you? Floor is yours.
Sure. So on the Bird app, I am Dope Girl Fresh, DOPEGIRLFRESH. Sayheylenee.com, SAYHEYLENEE.com is my website. I am kind of on a hiatus from Instagram, but I'm Dope Girl Fresh on Instagram too. What else is happening in my life? I am chilling right now, but in May I'll be offering more grief workshops. Um, I am also trying to launch some t-shirts. We'll see. Do a little, not like branded merchandise necessarily, but just something I think a lot of us need to remember is we all we got. And that doesn't mean that we are unloved, but we all we got out here. Black folks, all marginalized folks, disabled folks, trans and queer folks, we all we got sometimes. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay to show that to one another that I got you. Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there's anything else I want to plug. But please do be on the lookout for me to come back to since we last spoke. So we do this gospel bracket. I
Book
strongly,
it.
I strongly encourage all of you who are gospel heads to get into it with us. And those of you who are curious about gospel, get into it because American music is gospel music. Black American music is the reason why we have all these genres now. It is
Yes.
American music. Everybody, wash your hands, wear a damn mask when you go out because COVID is still out here. Floss your teeth before you brush them. Put on sunscreen because oh my gosh, I know
Yes.
black crack, da, da, da. Yeah, sure, but we don't have an ozone layer anymore, so let's not play that game. And most importantly, drink some damn water
Hydrate.
because y'all be out here sweating Coca-Cola. That's nasty. Drink some water.
I I couldn't have said it better myself. I had a coworker. That fool drinks Mountain Dew and nothing else. And I'm like, every 4 months you're in the hospital passing kidney stones. I'm like, bro, what don't you what's not computing? Like,
His endocrine system is going to get up and leave him.
I mean, he's basically pissing rust at this point.
And he is. Yeah, he is. He just, I don't know. He got that stuff that made Harvey Dent into Two Face. No, thank you. Mm. Oh, no, 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 no. We not doing that. Don't be like that guy, y'all.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a water tracker app, I got recommendations. Like just give yourself the gift of hydration. A lot of us are aging and we're aging okay, but we can age better when we hydrate and eat a vegetable, a real one.
Yeah.
Them string beans at Popeyes are fine, but maybe you need to cook you some green beans. Maybe you need to eat you some. I was just talking about kale and salad. Y'all run it back and get my salad recipe.
Yeah. Get some roughage. Something that'll make you flow
Yeah.
a lot freelier than a
Yeah.
ribeye.
Mm-mm. Mm. Exactly.
And thank y'all for listening. Make sure you like, download, and
Okay,
subscribe to Since We Last Spoke with Danny
bear with me
Foxworth.
just a moment.
Follow my YouTube page. I'm at Danny Foxworth 843. You can find all the video versions of all of my podcast episodes for this podcast.
My internet just did. My internet just out on me, but
It's all good. We near the end anyway. Make
okay.
sure you follow my YouTube page. I'm at Danny Foxworth 843, where you can find all of the video episodes of for Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth, as well as my baseball podcast at the Plate with Danny Foxworth. I got stickers coming soon too. Stay tuned. And for Lenée and myself, it's been another episode of Since We Last Spoke. And until next time, y'all be good. Peace.